Good morning. Welcome to the Celtic Way Morning Briefing Live. I'm Tony Haggerty, Haggerty 10, as you know, and I'm joined today by Alison McConnell, who's back from holiday. Welcome back, Alison.
Thanks, Tony. Glad to be
Delighted
back.
to be back. I can see that delighted to be back face. And also Sean Martin at Sean Martin TCW Twitter handle. You all right, Sean?
I'm all right. You know, Alison's back when she gets top billing, and I'm just the also guy. I'm also with Sean. He's also here,
Got to give her
unfortunately.
got to give her the big welcome, Matt. You know the red carpet treatment is coming back from holiday, Sean. You know how it is. Yes. So first things first, we always big up our sponsors. One Football. You can get downloading the One Football app. The link's in the description. It's a one-stop football shop for scores, news, lineups, transfer rumours, live streaming and match highlights, much more. You can immerse yourself in the digital football world and have the best personal experience out there. It's a cracking app, guys. Get downloading it. One Football app. Links in the description. And as you can see, we've always got an offer for you every day. £3 for the next 3 months. You know what to do by now. Hit that subscribe button. You can join us all. www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. Now, Sean and Alison, the Czech Republic and Austrian part of the tour is over. Celtic played 3-1-2, drew 1, scored 14. I got it right this time, Sean. I was counting my fingers last night. I'd forgotten the scores 10 for Ali, and I was giving it a bit of that. But how pleased were you with the 3-game run out, Sean, with the way Celtic performed?
I think it'll have been useful, definitely. Ange kind of mentioned it, but playing in front of crowds that actually care about the game at hand, even though it's a friendly, will help. As does the intensity of the last 2 games, I would say, in terms of on the park. The first game, yeah, all right, 7-0, get the kind of cobwebs away, all that kind of stuff. It also allowed some youngsters to get a feel for their first teammates in a match environment as well. Apart from that, obviously there are still other areas to improve. Postecoglou mentioned sloppy passing, and I'd agree with that. But also defensively as well. We touched on a lot of that last night, Tony.
Yeah.
Aside from anything else, and I mentioned this before they left, there's a camaraderie aspect that comes with a pre-season tour as well. And I think these things do bear fruit as the months go on, sometimes as much as the fitness and tactical stuff. And anyway, pre-season tour might be over, but there's still games to come. Remember, Blackburn, Legia and Norwich before that Aberdeen opener.
Alison, you've been on pre-season tours with clubs like Celtic and others, and it is genuinely about getting fitness into players' legs and setting up some team shape, and as Sean says, camaraderie, and then there's things that you work on, isn't it? It's basically all about that.
Yeah, but I think it can be very important too, and I think none more so than this season. I think it's important to have a unit, a collective unit, where you can talk about your philosophy, you can talk about particular systems, how you want to play, how you're setting up, things that you want. Obviously, the fitness aspect is the main thing at this point. It's about conditioning, it's about getting minutes into legs, but there are other aspects of it that I think are important, and that's why I think it can be so vital for Celtic this season that you have that unit which is already established. I think last season there was a sense of almost fighting against the current at times because there was so much going on.
Yeah.
Personnel were so different. Even if you look at the starting lineups on those first few games over the opening month of the campaign, it was very different to what became the established lineup in Ange Postecoglou's first season. So I think Celtic are at an advantage this season that the foundations are already firmly in place and that you're building upon that. And I think what you would expect is for Celtic to improve now, to go up a level again, to hit the ground running because you've already got that in place. I think it's been a very productive pre-season from what I've seen. I think the results look good again. I think there can be an overemphasis at times on results in friendly games, but I think it does help when you're winning games. I think it does help when you can see players scoring goals. I think Georgios Giakoumakis will be delighted with that goal that he scored last night. I think it just helps the morale within the squad, and I think it helps just being away and just reaffirming what you are, what kind of team you are, how you set up, and how you go and play.
Now, Sean, the manager has said he's still looking for 2 members of personnel. The rumour mill went into overdrive yesterday with supposedly signing 19-year-old PSG midfielder Edouard Michut. All sorts of social media links there yesterday. But the manager addressed that, and he also addressed, you put out a tweet last night saying the Aaron Moy link, the constant Aaron Moy link as well. Now, he addressed those two. He said Michut, no, and he more or less said, nah, that Aaron Moy was probably not on his radar either, but did talk about him as being a good player. Now, you still think that Celtic will bring in those two players that Ange wants, but not necessarily either of those two?
Yeah, I think so. I think he said one or two, and I think that is what they'll eventually bring in. In terms of the two you mentioned there, yeah, his response on the Edouard Michut thing was to a question about the fact that multiple outlets had reported the interest. So he kind of said, "Oh, multiple, that it must be true," type of thing, which is a fair criticism, especially when it comes to the social media sphere these days. I think, given the player is in a bit of a dispute with PSG after being left off the senior pre-season tour, as far as I'm aware, there's every chance it's an agent-based line, based on Celtic's past experience of taking PSG youngsters like Alison Edouard and Timothy Weah. Maybe, but that all said, it's not going to stop me doing an in-depth scouting report on him for the website, just in case. I'm just putting that out there. But Aaron Moy, he was a wee bit more coy on Moy. I think he said he's talented, that he knows him obviously, and that he feels he's in his range, but also that Celtic have a plan that they're sticking to when it comes to transfers, which I thought was probably the more telling part of it. You know what I made of it the other day, Tony?
Yeah.
I don't think he's the right fit at this stage in his career and at this stage of the Celtic squad's development, but we'll see. Did you notice what else he said though, Tony, in amongst it all? He said, "We know what we need, we're in no rush."
Yes.
And I told you, I suspected that'd be the attitude. Security is underrated with the contract situation, having got two key players and a couple of other periphery complementary pieces in already. I think these final one or two players will come in, but I think, and as I said last night, no need to be rushed through the door with them.
That's quite a telling point that Sean makes and that Angie's made as well, Alison, about there being no rush to get these two players in that he needs, because as you touched upon there's that camaraderie there. Everything they're connecting the dots are joined and aligned this season. Last season it was very disjointed, wasn't it? But this season there's a wee bit more continuity there, and Celtic have the makings of a decent team.
I think the fundamentals are in place. I think the two positions that he has spoken about are the two players. I think you can identify what positions they are likely to be. I think there is not the same urgency as there was last season. I think it's a fairly settled squad at the minute. I think there's decent competition for places. I think the two players that will come in will complement what is already there. And I think they're right to be patient. I don't think there's a need to rush in just now to bring in players for the sake of it. I think you want to bring in players that improve the quality that is there rather than bringing in players to make up numbers.
David Ferguson, good things come to those who wait. Sean, and there's other comments saying trust the manager and trust the process, and he knows what he wants. That is quite a telling comment, Sean. I know what I want, and I know the areas, and I won't be rushed. I know I was putting on transferable on O'Reilly shirt instead of his name. Yes, indeed.
No, I think so. And there's a few comments about obviously the kind of transfer speculation in general. I'd like to think that over the summer we've not spent too much time. A concerted effort, certainly in the first few weeks of the window. I was at pains to stress to the two of you, let's not talk about the same speculation, same links every single day. But maybe we lapsed into it in the last week or so. But no, I think we've been all right, not been overkill with it. But I think it's fair game when Ange is actually speaking about the guy, whether it's to disassociate himself from him or not. I think it's fair game.
But we made it a policy, Alison, not to talk about every player that was linked, but when it became more than a link, and maybe certain media outlets were reporting things, then we thought we would speak about it then, because Celtic get linked with lots of players in the summer and January transfer windows. It's impossible to keep tabs, isn't it? And it's impossible to talk about them all in great depth and in great detail, because there are guys that will just, it is what Sean says, there's agent links there, there's all sorts of agendas going on, so it's pointless to talk about them.
I think it's one of the great skills in journalism, to be honest with you, is to go and identify fact from fiction in a situation like this, to go and it takes a lot of work. It takes quite a lot of digging and quite a lot of time on a phone to establish the veracity of rumours. I think it's underrated how much work it takes just to establish
to knock something down
in that field. I think it takes a lot of hours just to go and work out what's true. But you're right. I think it can be very tenuous conversations that create a link and that create speculation around a player. And I think if you had to chase every single one of them, I think you would be, you'd be chasing your tail at times, because it's inevitable that at this point in the season that there are always links with, with a sizable amount of players, and just establishing. Sometimes it's very easy to say, I don't think there's much in it because of finances that it would involve. I think sometimes just a bit of common sense tells you that it's not a goer. Other times I think it can take a wee bit more work than that. I think what has been clear throughout is that Ange Postecoglou has identified a number of key areas in his side, and those are the areas of the pitch that he wishes to strengthen. And I think when you get to the end of the summer and you look, I think you'll be able to identify how successful a window that's been.
I think, Tony, that's why it was useful last night that after that Bannock Ostrava game, he was just asked up front about it, and he answered up front about it as well. As I say, it won't stop me doing an in-depth scouting report just in case, because I like that kind of thing and all that. But but it is good that he was asked up front and he answered up front. And
another question he answered up front was the Reo Hatate question, and it turned out that it was a training knock, Sean, that we'd spoken about before the game. Well,
after the game,
after the game. Sorry, yes, and there's no great injury there, and he won't be out for any length of time. So I
agree with you. That was good. Good for him. Confirm it. It confirmed it with Juranovic and Ralston as well. That's why I kind of. All right, it was 2 + 2. It just so happens it did make 4 this time. But strictly speaking, it was injured, Hatate. It's just that it was a knock in training, as we speculated last night, rather than a more serious one. Postecoglou also kind of referenced the fact that Hatate had already played against Wiener Victoria and Rapid Vienna.
Yes.
And that meant it wasn't a necessity to get minutes into his legs against Bannock Ostrava. So he expects him to be involved on Saturday, or I expect him to be involved on Saturday, given Ange Postecoglou says he'll be training again tomorrow. So, it was a precautionary thing, a wee knock-in training, so all good.
Now, one of the takeaways, Alison, from the 3-game tour is the strikers, Kyogo and Georgios Giacomakis. You talked about Georgios Giacomakis' goal. We spoke about it yesterday after the game, about Matt O'Reilly's goal and Georgios Giacomakis. What one was my favourite? But the two of them look particularly, yes, as Michael Ross says, up front, we look very tasty. Defence, we'll go into that in a minute. But the two of them just seem to be taking on from where they left off last season. Real predators, real good goal scorers, and just in a nutshell, Alison, they're tremendous players, to be honest, and Celtic are lucky to have them.
Yeah, it brings us back. I mean, we spoke about this quite a number of times. I think last season, I know I wrote a piece about it, but I think there's a real dilemma there for Ange Postecoglou about, can you fit these two guys in to play together in a starting lineup? I think it's a tantalising prospect to have the two of them on the pitch together, because I would agree. Someone mentioned there that he thinks both would get 20 goals, and I have to think I would probably be in agreement with that. I think both could possibly go even higher.
That's a conservative estimate, isn't it?
Yeah, I think, but it's intriguing because I don't think Ange Postecoglou has ever played, and I think we went through this at all the different clubs he's been at the Australian national level. He's never went with a very traditional front two, and I'm not sure that he would ever compromise his own philosophies and style now, but I definitely think there is food for thought there, because the evidence that's in front of you is that both of these guys will score if they're on the pitch.
Yeah. Now, Sean, you put up a link to the piece that I did this morning, Giacomakis, a natural born killer. We spoke about it off here, and it's 16 of his 18 goals he scored, including the pre-season goal yesterday. He has one-touch finishes. I mean, that's an incredible stat, and we kind of laughed about it, and most of them coming from Anthony Ralston crosses, or a fair percentage of them coming from Anthony Ralston crosses. And we spoke about him hitting an area where he thought Giacomakis would be, known full well that if he gets on the end of it, the end result's probably producing a goal. I mean, it's a part of the team that is functioning, Sean.
Yeah.
Giakoumakis, if he stays fit, he said himself in the piece that if he stays fit and healthy, he wants to score every game. It's quite a frightening prospect.
It is, and you kind of referenced his confidence that goes along with it.
Yes.
The kind of what I've referenced in the headline is the disrespectful confidence of a natural born killer.
A swagger, I think you would call it, yeah.
Yeah, obviously in reference to the Ryan Jack response to Giakoumakis saying that Celtic were a better team and better in all areas and going to win the league, all of which actually turned out to be true, to be fair to him.
Yeah.
But no, I think it bodes well. We've both been saying the last couple of weeks that the two of those players stay fit and you've got a really, really, really competitive intra-squad rivalry there. I mean, more than one comment saying expect both of them to get to 20 goals this season. Some even saying more than that. For me, it depends on fitness. Obviously, the two of them spent significant time out injured at certain places, at certain spots of the season last year. But no, I genuinely think it bodes well. I think it also relieves the pressure on who the third striker is. I think Albion Ayeti we kind of expect maybe to leave. Johnny Kenny, can he stake a claim to be that third choice when called upon? In terms of playing two up front, I've said for months now, I don't think he's going to do that. He has done it before, actually, is what I would say. He done it in Boxing Day. That was two up front, but that was certain things went into that day that prompted three at the back and two up front and different things. I don't expect it to be a thing that happens that often. He played three at the back with Australia, but even then it wasn't really two up front. So I don't expect it to be that he shoehorns two of them up front. I don't necessarily think that he'll put Kyogo out wide. I don't think you get the best out of him out wide. So I think it's a straight shootout between the two of them for most games. And I think it's a brilliant problem to have. In my opinion, Kyogo's still an elite striker. Giakoumakis is a very good striker. But it could be horses for courses. It depends on the opponent, depends on what's required. And I said before Giakoumakis really hit the ground running, he did make significant, well, maybe not significant, telling impacts at the end of European games, coming on, using his body, intelligently using his body, not just winning fouls, but bringing other players into play for counter-attacks and stuff. So he's got that in his locker. But yeah, I think there's going to be a rotation between the two of them as long as they're fit, and it's a brilliant problem to have.
Alison, I referenced Kyogo's comments the other day as well. He's saying he's after Giakoumakis' crown to be the top goal scorer in the Premiership this season. And I was saying it in the fact that how's that for geeing the two of them up? Because there'll be a healthy competitive rivalry there, and the manager couldn't have done a better job. They will each bring the best out in each other, won't they? With comments like that.
Yeah, I think it's a kind of headache that all managers sort of love to have, and it's the old cliche, like just keeping one another on their toes. I think there's always a rivalry in that kind of position about who's got the most goals and personal stats. You ask any striker, it's amazing they can rhyme their stats off the top of their head without thinking about it. I think it is important to them, and I think that kind of edge of competitiveness is there. I think it's good for the team. I think it's great for Ange Postecoglou to have it, and I do think it is a very intriguing dilemma. I think what we will go back to saying is, as we've mentioned countless times, is that the opening half of this campaign is incredibly intense. As you sort of Constantine are all these games in before the World Cup, European games. I think the only 3 midweeks are for international games, so it's a fairly fraught opening few months to the campaign. So I think it might help that you can give players a rest. I think if you can maybe chop and change sometimes, I don't think you want to be doing that too often and too much, but I think if you have reliable players who can go in and take the jersey and not drop the standard within the side, then I think that's fairly invaluable too.
Tony, on that point, we've got a comment from David Ferguson here on the point of two players, one position, that kind of thing. David Ferguson says Ralston is first pick right back for me at the minute. He was immense when he came on. He also wore the captain's armband, Tony. He did indeed, and we were going to talk about that. I say this. You said a renaissance under Postecoglou is bordering on paranormal activity. I said in the Giakoumakis piece, because this time last season he was out of the picture, wasn't he?
Or he had to stay in the picture because he was only right back at the club.
Well,
and the transformation has been unbelievable. And and there's just something about Ralston now that, the Celtic supporters just love that endeavour, don't they? They love that application, they love the attitude, they love the effort. But I lie to that, he's actually proved himself to be a decent footballer. He got the Scotland call up and scored his goal, and he deserves everything that's coming to him because of that hard work, and he's willing to knuckle down and listen. And Ange Postecoglou takes a lot of credit here. He's clearly been able to get into the guy's head and show them a system that he feels comfortable with, and fair play to Anthony Ralston for absorbing that knowledge, doing what the manager wants, and making giving Ange Postecoglou another dilemma with the first choice right back with him and Josip Juranovic. Spin a coin, take your pick. Because Ralston.
I still think it's probably Juranovic, but
I think it's Juranovic.
As I said to you last night, Tony, I think you get different qualities from each of them. I think Ralston showed his last night with the kind of what I say is almost becoming a trademark overlapping cross. Juranovic, for all the talk of his delivery when he arrived, I still think he's to showcase that to a better extent than Ralston. I actually think he's better at coming inside and playing the inverted stuff a wee bit better than Ralston. But it's good that there's almost two different qualities there that you can rely upon. And actually, I think Ralston and Abada together actually regularly do that, because when you wrote about the kind of Ralston tuning into Giakoumakis and putting it into an area and all that, when I looked at the goals that you referenced and checked to see if there was any other ones, a lot of the time it is Abada giving it to Ralston in a similar situation as what it was last night as well. So I like that. I think Juranovic is probably still the higher quality player. I think it would be disingenuous of me to say otherwise, even though, Tony, when at the end of the January transfer window, when we done what's Celtic's strongest 11, I think I actually put Ralston as the starting right back at the time. Maybe in my defence, Juranovic had mostly played left back for a while, but still, no, I think it's good that there's competition there. And last night, getting that captain's armband, what a moment it would have been from even in a friendly. Greg Taylor next.
Possibly. Alison, he never lets you down, does he, Tony Ralston?
Listen, I think it's been spoken of extensively. I think what you're seeing just now is a player who is confident, who is assured. I think he looks relaxed. I think he knows his place now within the squad in a way that he didn't a year ago, and I just think that lends itself to a certain kind of confidence that helps you focus on your game. There's not any noise going on round about him. I think he would have been delighted to get the armband last night. I'm sure it would have been a kind of completes the circle of where he was to where he is now. I think if you look over the last few months, it's been a pretty momentous couple of months in terms of the Scotland goal and taking the armband. And it's about what comes next now for Anthony Ralston. And I'm still intrigued about whether or not there might be another move or another bid for Juranovic before the window is out. And you kind of look at last night and you think, what's the view of the manager of the club when you see, well, there is a right back there that could step in? I think Celtic may still be susceptible to a move for Josip Juranovic.
Well, we'll see how that plays out. They've got till August the 31st for that eventuality, Sean.
Yep. No, I mean, I don't disagree. When we spoke about the potential for Juranovic to go elsewhere, I remember I spoke to you, Tony, about the Premier League tax. If it's an English team, add another 3-4 million onto it right away. That kind of thing. If it happened to be the Atletico Madrid one, fair enough. I think you could ask for more if he has a good first half of the season, a good World Cup. By that token, if he doesn't have a good one and he's then nearly 28 by the time next summer rolls around, I think you're probably not going to get as much. But it's all relative. It's all as Alison says. You wonder what Ange Postecoglou's thoughts on the matter would be if a real good bid came in. Would it be overly perturbed? Would it be overly perturbed? Like it wouldn't be the same situation as you were in last summer, strictly speaking, because it's almost like Ralston's he is a totally different player from last summer. But I suppose you'll just see that when and if a bid comes in. I was wanting to mention one more thing. Just speaking of left backs, talking about Greg Taylor I meant to mention to you the other day, Tony, that I don't know if you noticed, but Emilio Haggerty now officially retired.
Yes.
And got a sporting director role at Honduran club Olancho FC.
Yes, I did see that, actually.
I felt obliged to mention him just because, a couple of my pals says, how could you not mention him? He was you're obsessed with him when he played with Celtic and stuff. For my money, I think I've mentioned it to you before, Tony, but that 2010-2011 campaign of his was the best single season level reached by a left back and arguably a full back, full stop, not just for Celtic but in Scotland for the past couple of decades. I really rated it that highly that season. I think that ankle injury really changed his game afterwards.
It did.
But before that, an outstanding player and one of my favourites to watch, full stop.
Well, we wish him well in his new role, and I think all the Celtic supporters have fond memories of that season and the way Izagiri played until he got his ankle injury. Indeed. Now, Sean and Alison, we've mentioned a lot of players, but we haven't really touched upon the likes of Abada, Jota and Maeda and what they will bring. And you forget, in amongst those three are three top quality players. Now, Sean, you said the other day that you thought Maeda could be the surprise package of the bunch and be a shout for top goal scorer, because you had him, you said he was 16 to 1. A couple of people said he needs to be more clinical, but he's getting into those positions, Alison. And if he does sharpen up his shooting boots, then he could be up there as well, challenging the big two for the top goal scorer prize.
Yeah, I think what you see is a team who have attacking options. I think you can see that you're not over reliant on one player to bring you goals, which I think is very important in terms of the balance of the side. I think there are, you look at Jota, you look at Abada. Abada, I thought, had an excellent campaign. I know he dipped at points last season, but for a 19-year-old, 20-year-old to come to a new culture, I thought he had an outstanding return. You would expect more from him again this season. Jota's signing is obviously, a real creative player that's there too, in terms of assists, in terms of goals, in terms of being able to create something in those stodgy, difficult games where you're maybe playing against 10 men behind the ball, you've got someone. So I think there are very clearly good, firm attacking options. Someone referenced it earlier in this conversation. I think defensively over pre-season, you've seen a few hesitant moments that you would like to think if Celtic can just steady that and just solidify that backline, then again it gives them a pretty firm foundation for going ahead both domestically and in a European context, because the examination in a Champions League sense will be, it will punish any frailties in that backline hugely. So I think it's possibly an area where you want to be looking at over the next few weeks and thinking if you can get that right, then you have the attacking options to go and hurt other teams.
I agree with that, Sean. I think offensively Celtic do have a plethora of players that can attack and hurt teams. It is defensively, isn't it, where maybe tweaks and tighten up.
Yeah, I think Europe in particular for both of those, I think will be important, translating the undoubted potency of the attack from domestic football into Europe, which I think they will do, because I think they showed they could do that last season. But arguably more importantly, not allowing certain aspects of the defensive play to be punished the way that they do in Europe, because domestically opponents won't punish them as much. I'm just going to, I noticed there's Narcotech, a regular viewer, is kind of worried in the comments here. I think he joined late. Hatate injury, Ange spoke about it. It was just to say that he missed it. He was injured, but it was a training ground knock and he should be back for the weekend. So just to put your mind at ease. I'm also going to take this up after my Izagiri comment. I knew it would come. This is usually the kind of the response I get from any of my pals when I bring it up. Better than KT, Sean? Yes, I would say it was. That peak season was a higher peak than Kieran Tierney reached for Celtic. I would argue, might be an unpopular opinion, and I don't think overall Izagiri will go down as a better left back for Celtic. But in that peak season, no, I think it was. I don't think Kieran Tierney reached that level quite, which is not a criticism of him because he was a lot younger. But yeah.
Kieran Tierney was always very complimentary about Izagiri, about what he taught him and what he gave him, and especially when he went into the first team, he was always very, I think he was always quite humbled, I think, by the advice that he'd given him.
Yeah,
Well, you can't ask for more than that, can you? Now, Celtic's pre-season bandwagon comes back to Glasgow. They entertain Blackburn Rovers on Saturday, and we will cover that tomorrow, preview that. But Ange touched upon it last night and said about the Bannock Ostrava fans making noise. He says it'll be good to get back to the noise at Celtic Park, and I think a lot of Celtic supporters can't wait for that to happen, Sean, on Saturday. But we'll preview that extensively tomorrow. And as always, what to say to Alison, thanks for your contribution now, top class. Thank you, Sean. Always enjoy it. Thanks for the comments. We try and answer as many of your queries and questions as we can. And we enjoy the fact that we've built a wee community here, and you guys enjoy the show too. We thank One Football for their sponsorship of the pod. Thank you for them. And thanks to everybody for subscribing. And you know what to do. Hit that button, www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. And that's a very kind comment, Beach Boys. This is my favourite and best Celtic outlet. Do a good job, all of you. Thank you very much. On that note, that's a lovely high to end the bulletin on, I think. We'll all go into the sun smiling. Alison, it's good to have you back. We'll see you tomorrow. Thank you, Sean. Thanks, guys.
Take care.
Cheers, guys. Cheers, Tony. Cheers, Alison.